We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion from America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families
She's talking about tariffs.
$4,000 more a year,
I think,
because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect.
Lie! You're going to raise tariffs. That's a sales tax. That's a consumption tax. Lie! Lie!
Pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything.
There was all the losses from China. China had retaliatory tariffs. Another lie.
When I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before. Probably
hyperbole like we've never seen before.
We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This
so such silliness, Kamala.
But for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by
jobs that people don't want to work. That's what he's talking about.
Also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's
anti-union Republicans. They don't care about unions whatsoever.
Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently.
The Mexicans, the migrants are taking over the towns.
And they're destroying our country. They're dangerous.
He's not proposing anything to help the economy.
We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of the country.
Bullshit. Not once did it crack 3% GDP growth.
During this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump.
Well, the worst economies in history is what Donald Trump left us after a pandemic.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the
January 6th.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook. A bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
Liar!
I haven't read it.
Liar!
Purposely, I'm not going to read it. This was a group of
Lies.
people got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad.
Project
But
2025 is all about
nothing to do.
consolidating
Everybody
power
knows
in the
I'm an open book.
executive.
Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great
For
economy
wealthy
like I did
billionaires like
before.
himself.
We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic.
Hey, you say it again, greatest economy ever.
1917, where 100 million
Oh, it was a
people died.
terrible
Nobody's
economy.
did anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a.
No, I don't take any responsibility.
The stock market was
Let's
higher
not send
than
out
it
the
was
ventilators.
before
He
the
failed
pandemic came
during
in.
the pandemic.
Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible.
I just said it'll be over in a month. It'll be over. We don't need to worry about.
But not enough credit for the great job we did with the
My
pandemic.
God, who's gonna
The only job
believe
they
that
did was
insanity?
bounce back.
Who's
These
gonna
were
believe
jobs
that?
Bounced back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at
He
his
smiles. He
economic
knows
plan,
he's
it's
got
all
no
about
plan.
tax
He
breaks
knows
for
it.
the
He
richest
knows
people.
his base are
I
a
am
bunch of
offering what I've
suckers.
described as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit.
It would.
16 Nobel laureates have
Billionaire
described
tax breaks
his
have
economic
never
plan
ever
as
paid
something
for
that would
itself.
increase
Never in the
inflation and by the
history
middle
of
next
supply
year
side
would
horse
invite a
barrel
recession.
economics.
You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
I think most reasonable people know that the only person Donald Trump is out is for himself.
Professors think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan. And it's like 4 sentences.
It's the
like
Biden-Harris
run,
plan.
Run.
That's what
4
it is.
sentences that he just, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan.
Yeah,
She
Biden
doesn't
had
have
the
a plan.
largest tax break, I think, since Ronald Reagan in 2021. He really helped get the economy back on track again.
And let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation.
God, what a turd.
Inflation.
Retaliatory tariffs means you end up losing trade.
I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else.
He never does grocery shopping. He never goes out and shops for his own groceries. What does he know about grocery prices?
And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response.
He could even break 3% GDP growth. What a joke.
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen.
One of the highest
in
trade
history of
deficits
America.
ever. That's right.
He invited
His losing trade wars. They bailed out the
his
farmers.
Deal with China, what he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology.
The CHIPS
so that
Act.
we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the
Biden's
stick,
created more manufacturing
of
jobs than
workers'
Donald
rights.
Trump. He made it
But what
all.
Donald
I'm going to
Trump
bring
did,
every
let's
job
talk about
back.
this,
He never
with
did
COVID,
that.
is he
The trade
actually
deficit
thanked
skyrocketed
President
under
Xi
Donald Trump.
for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump will let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat.
Raise tariffs?
But
His philosophy?
Change it, and it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
He
Her
said
father's a
Marxist. Oh my
professor
God.
in economics, and he taught
Close
her well.
bad. It's the
When you look at
world. I
what
don't
she's
have a
done for our
policy. I
country,
don't have a
and when you look
policy.
at these
It's
millions
failing
and millions of
big
people that are
time.
pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21
Where's
million
his
people,
small
not the 15
business
that
tax
people say.
deduction? Where is it? Where is
Look
it?
at the New York State pouring in, and just look at what they're doing to our
He's
country.
barely countering
They're criminals. Many
anything.
of these people coming in are criminals, and that's bad for our economy too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration.
Man, doom and
Well,
gloom
bad
is so
immigration is the
done.
worst thing that can happen to our economy.
She won big on the
She has
economy.
destroyed.
She's going to give every startup, small business a $50,000 tax deduction. The average startup cost is $40,000. We've heard nothing from the failed, twice impeached, one-term failed insurrectionist president.
You said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history.
She hit him hard on the largest trade deficit in American history after his presidency. That's one big failed economy from Donald J. Trump.
Said that it was too short, and he said, quote, I'm going to be voting.
Her administration has created more manufacturing jobs under Biden than under 4 years of Donald Trump.
To support the 6-week ban.
Build Back Better and the CHIPS Act and the Green New Deal.
Of abortion, because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust
So
you?
the reason
Tariffs are bad for the consumer. You end up paying more for everyday goods. Tariffs are bad.
You can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a friendly or whatever's going on. I have no idea. Mexico sucks. Maybe Canada gets a result.
And that's why I did that, because that.
I don't know if backups are playing or anything.
The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her
Tim
vice
Walz is
presidential
much
pick
more
says
like everyday
abortion
America
is
than
right.
any other politician out there in America,
He
even
also
more
said
so than Bernie
execution
Sanders.
After birth, it's execution, no longer abortion, because the
He
baby
loves
born
hunting.
is okay.
He's about getting along with all of our neighbors. Tim Walz is perfect. He's exactly what America needs.
52 years they've been trying to get Roe
A
v.
football
Wade
coach, America's
into the
football
States.
coach, America's
And
teacher,
through the
Tim Walz,
genius and
an elected
heart
representative
and
from a
strength
rural
of
district.
6 Supreme Court justices,
He knows what
we
needs
were
to happen
able to
for
do
rural
that. Now, I
America.
believe in the exceptions
Nobody knows
for
it better than
rape,
Timothy
incest,
James
and life
Walz.
of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time,
In response to what your right-wing Supreme Court did.
For 52 years, every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened.
No, they didn't. They didn't want it to even be up to the states. Abortion is the law of the land.
But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people.
He's taking away rights from certain states. That's what the Supreme Court did.
And the Supreme
He nominated two religious zealots in the Supreme Court, two Jesuit Catholic Supreme Court
There is no state
justices.
in this country where it is legal to kill a baby.
Infringe on the rights of millions of women in this country.
Well, as I said, you're gonna hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
Exactly.
And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over
Everybody
20 states,
believes that.
there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime, a violation to their body.
Republicans are all for
does
small
not have the
government,
right to
except
make a
for
decision
what
about happens
does
to
and
their
does
body
not
next.
happen
That
with
is
women's
immoral.
bodies. It's so ironic.
And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government and
Exactly.
Donald
You
Trump
can be
certainly should not
Catholic,
be telling a woman what to
but
do
you can agree that the
with her
government
body.
has
I
no
have
place
talked
to
with women
decide on
around our
abortion.
country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers
Donald Trump
are
has
afraid
no
they might go
empathy.
to
He
jail,
couldn't
and she's
give a
bleeding
shit.
out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you. Vice
Everybody
President
agrees
Harris.
with that. Government has no place telling women what they can
I'm
and
not
cannot
signing
do
a
with their
ban,
bodies.
And there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states. And the
Nobody
states
wanted to
voted.
bring it back up to the states except for fringe small government libertarians.
This issue has torn our country apart. And
They
it's
want
back
states to
in the
pick to
states,
infringe
and
on the
did
rights of
something
women.
that nobody
This is
thought
their
was possible.
argument.
The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because
Liar!
this issue
Liar!
is taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban? if-
Oh, I'm not in favor of national abortion ban, but if you're a state, you can ban abortion if you like.
It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the.
Roe's the law of the land. He doesn't want Roe to be the law of the land.
In the House. She's not gonna get the vote.
These are natural rights. Natural rights that the government has no right to infringe. They don't believe in natural law. They believe in the law, in states' ability to infringe on the natural rights of women.
But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again, we'll do it a different way.
These Supreme
We
Court
got
justices
rejected again by the
are the
Supreme
reason
Court.
why
So
no
all these students got
woman out there should believe Donald Trump's malarkey.
And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost.
Why does,
to the
out of
millions and
any
millions of
Supreme
people
Court
that had to pay
justice,
off
he
their
hires
student
two
loans,
Jesuit
mitigated for free.
radical
But they were saying
religious
it's the same
zealots.
way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could
They
just
know
get a yes
damn
or no,
well
because you're
exactly
running
what
late,
they
J.D.
doing.
Vance has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with JD, in all fairness, JD, and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful, let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now You have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and in asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris.
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader.
Out of all people, he says it's another lie.
In IVF, I have been a leader. In fact,
Liar!
when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it.
Liar! They did it themselves. You had nothing to do with it. Liar!
Sterilization, IVF. And the other thing,
You're against reproductive health care. You are a BSer, Donald Trump.
9th month, 7th month. Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask me that
Why
question?
don't you
That's
answer the
problem.
question? Would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer the
Wade,
question.
you could
Answer the question!
The 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
It's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration. from
Republicans
Central
rejected
America.
the border
We know
bill.
that illegal border
In
crossings
2024
reached a record
it was.
high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us.
He doesn't
to
give two
stem
shits
the
about
flow
border
of
agents. All he
fentanyl
cares
coming
about
into
is
the
getting
United
elected.
States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations.
Yeah!
for trafficking guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know,
Woo! Donald Trump doesn't care about the border. He's want to whiff on the border to get him elected. He's a traitor. He don't care about the border.
people of our country actually need a leader.
Don't pass the bill, because let's get back at Biden. Let's delay action on the border. He's a fraud. Donald Trump don't care about the border.
Someone who would prefer to
He don't care about the border.
fixing a problem.
If you care about the border, you pass the damn bill. We give the border agents all the resources they need ASAP. I thought this was a national
This
emergency.
is a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter.
Kamala's nailing Donald Trump by immigration.
And what you will also notice is that people
Tough,
start leaving
hard-nosed
his
prosecutors
rallies
gonna
early
go
out of
after
exhaustion
these
and
little
boredom.
gangbanging criminals
And I'm gonna
coming
tell you
over
one
the
thing you will
border.
not
That's a
hear
brilliant
about
commercial
is you.
That's a brilliant
We're
ad
not
from
here to talk
Kamala.
about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your
Well, I would
response.
like to
Let
respond.
me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill and successfully so?
Why did you kill the bill?
Officers on the board.
First, let me respond to
Boo!
leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
People don't go to Kamala's rallies.
To be there.
Horse pants, liar on fire.
So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
This rally
Because people wanna
emptied at
take-
Atlanta. Oh my
Our
Lord.
country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on?
We're a
here-
failing nation because
World
Donald Trump
War III
refused
just
to
go to
act
another
against the
country.
Chinese
What
COVID
they have
virus.
done to our country by allowing
We're a
these
failed
millions
nation
and
because of
millions
this
people
guy.
to come into our country.
Because of
And look at
politicians,
what's
we have
happening in the
already
towns
seen
all over
already. We
the
don't
United States. A
want
lot of
anywhere
towns don't
near
wanna
this
talk,
White
not
House.
only Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're
Eating the
cats.
dogs.
They're eating-
He is on the
they're
good
eating
stuff.
The pets of the people that
Eating
live
the
there.
pets? What a
And this is what's
lunatic.
happening
What a
in our
lunatic.
country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back.
Is he
They wanna
delusional?
Make America great again.
He's delusional.
Make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this
America
country
wasn't
doesn't have
great
a
after your
chance of success.
presidency. What does that say about you,
Will it
Don
be
Old?
Venezuela or
Old man Don Old? Make America great again. Why wasn't America great again after the end of your presidency? That's the question.
Being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Mic drop.
This is
The
the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from.
But the
He
people
doesn't
on
own any
television say my
dogs?
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again.
What is he talking about? What is he going off about?
Talk about extreme.
Weirdo.
You know,
He's a weirdo.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who had formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of
That was a
former
year I
Vict
suck.
Cheney and Congressmember Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the
If the
inside
Dems
track
take the
on
White
who
House,
the
if
former
they take the
president
House
is,
and the
if you
Senate,
get
this guy's a
it
bona fide
already,
loser.
this
It'll
guy's
happen
people who have
twice
worked with him.
during
His former
past
chief of
8
staff,
years.
a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former
He's
national
shaking.
security
I
advisor
agree. I
said he's
agree. There you
innocent
go.
until his former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic,
Kill Mike
would
Pence
never
because he
survive
won't uphold
another
the election in the Constitution.
term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump will give you a quick minute to respond.
Yeah. Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did.
Most of those
Yeah,
people
he's a good
quit
guy.
because they know
I
he was
fired-
such an
They never
idiot.
fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose.
He was the guy who released 5,000 Afghani fighters without involving the Afghani government in the negotiation table.
One of the most incompetently handled situations any.
If he was president, 13 people still would have died under Donald Trump if he won in 2020.
So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same
Inflation's
people.
going down.
That's
Most
a
of the
good way
inflation
not to
happened
have
before
books
Donald
like that.
Trump,
But just to finish,
before
I
Joe
have
Biden
more
got
votes
inaugurated.
than
Most of
any
the
Republican
inflation
in
happened
history
before
by
he
far.
was inaugurated.
In fact,
What kind of debate are you
president,
watching?
sitting president
You're
in
delusional.
history by far.
let me continue.
He's lying on everything. Kamala's cooking him on everything. She is saying truth after truth after truth. People are not going to listen to the bullshit.
President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the national.
She smoked him on that border bill.
No problem.
He didn't want the border bill passed. Oh, what a crisis. Oh my God. What emergency. Oh, don't pass the border bill. Man, this guy whipped big time. He says, oh, it should be up to the states. States should have the right to deny women the right to say what they want to do with their own bodies.
Because of them.
He's cooking himself this
many,
debate.
millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals.
No,
They
there's
allowed
violence,
people
there's
to come and
crime
break
out there.
come into our
Donald
country
Trump
and
has
live in the
nothing to
United
offer to the
States
American
and
people.
by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're
Oh,
going to defeat you.
I can't
Do you know
say
the
it.
crime in
What do you
Venezuela?
mean? What do you mean they're injured?
All over the world.
Yeah, they're banged up before training camp. They'll still
Because
be
they've
here in
taken
March,
criminals
April,
off the
May.
street And they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it.
That's only for the start of the season.
But it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the.
Nothing happened to the Jets. It was the first game of the year, and Jets will still be a playoff team. The 49ers are fool's gold again.
Up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is.
It's only one without McCaffrey and lineups, this and that. Lots of field goals, not lots of touchdowns, lots of field goals. Game-managing quarterback, mediocre game-managing quarterback.
They were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud. Just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
Really, COVID is why we had a big spike of immigration. When you close off the world for 12 months, of course you're going to see a spike of immigration. Because the world reopened. That's what we have to think about as far as immigration goes. We have to think about what the last 12 to 18 months.
Sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear.
Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up! Lock him up!
For the rule of law and respect for law enforcement, the former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34.
This is brilliant. A prosecutor dispels the notion that Democrats are for lawlessness and not for law and order and the police. The prosecutor is the nominee.
And address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support
Donald Trump don't give a damn about the housing shortage. He has no plan for that. At least Kamala does have something to offer to the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Donald Trump has nothing except fear and hatred and bigotry and division and diversion.
Most of them, and I will win the rest of them.
It's so bad. Don't it's bad, and I'll fix it. But I don't have a plan.
But those are cases. It's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the justice.
I don't agree with the 25,000. That has the same effect as student loans. But the fact is, encourage home building. That's what we need. At least she said we need to encourage more home building in this country. Now, I disagree with giving $25,000 up because that's going to spike the house prices if you make equity down payments that easily available. We already seen what happened with student loans.
A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well,
There's no weaponization of the Justice Department. The Justice Department are not bringing up charges on Trump. It's the district courts. It's the state court in Georgia. It's a district court in Washington, D.C. It's not the DOJ bringing up Donald Trump's charges at New York. That is the state court that's bringing up charges against Donald Trump. The DOJ has not been bringing up charges against Donald Trump.
The Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of justice against his political enemies.
This guy
Someone who has
weaponized the
openly
DOJ.
expressed disdain.
They
for
didn't
members
go
of
after
our
his
military.
collusion with
Understand
Vladimir Putin
what
and the
it would
Russian
mean if
government.
Donald Trump
Election
were back in the
interference,
White House
election
with
interference.
no guardrails. Because certainly we know now that court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice
This
President.
is how we look at it.
Vice
No
President
one's going to
Harris,
vote for
your last
weirdo
choice
J.D.
for president.
Vance. This election, everyone knows he's not going to be here in 4 years from now. People are not going to vote for J.D. Vance to be the president. A guy like that, no charisma, can't offer anything to America. He all cares about his own Silicon-rich folks. He's out of touch with working people. Are people really going to see President J.D.
Now you
Vance?
don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the.
I tell you, she's a
every point that you've
pragmatist.
made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking.
Stay down the middle and go
I made
after
that
Donald
very
Trump's
clear in
corruption.
2020. I will not ban
I can
fracking.
say she's a pretty
I
good
will not ban
politician.
fracking as Vice President of the
She
United
got
States.
ripped
In fact,
apart by
I
Tulsi.
was
That's
the
why she got
top-ranking
knocked
vote
out
on
before the Iowa
Inflation
caucuses of
Reduction
2020.
Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position
I would have loved
is
Elizabeth
that we
Warren
have
or
got
Bernie
to
Sanders to be
invest
on that stage.
in
It's a shame
diverse
we
sources
don't
of
have that
energy
kind
so
of
we
world.
reduce our reliance on foreign oil.
These Manchurians are
Had
selected
the
to be on
largest
that stage.
increase in domestic
They're
oil
both
production in
Manchurian
history
to the
because
core.
of an approach
Both
that
of these people.
recognizes that we cannot over rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership.
Hopefully
no,
that
not everybody got
Childhood
handed
story from her, she'll want to do the
$400 million
same,
on a
but
silver platter and then file
give these
bankruptcy 6
builders
times.
tax
Is a value that I
incentives
bring to my
to
work.
build
Say we
the
are going
materials
to
that they
work with the
use,
private sector and home
make it
builders
all
to
tax
increase
deductible,
3
carry
million
forward the
homes,
tax
increase by 3
deductions
million
to
homes by the end of
future
my first
years.
term.
They
My
don't
work
pay
that is
any
related
taxes
to
on
having
what
a friend
they're
when I was in high
making
school who was sexually
profit-wise
assaulted by
on a
a stepfather.
given year.
And my focus
There are
then
certain other
on
ways
protecting
that we
women
can
and children
encourage
from
home
violent
building in
crime
this
is based
country.
on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. And name calling. The true measure of the leader.
Name calling!
The leader who actually understands that strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of
response?
all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder.
He gave him $400 million in today's dollars. He's a liar! No!
He gave many, many billions of dollars. Many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised.
He bankrupted 2 casinos for crying out loud.
For 12 years. Defund the police. She's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. You know,
She didn't say let's defund every police department in America. Another lie! Another lie! Lie, 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 lie. Washington Post said he lied over 10,000 times.
Burned down Minneapolis. She went out
A
and
couple,
raised money to get 'em
few
out of jail.
times a
She
day
did things
on
that nobody would
average
ever
during
think
his
of.
presidency.
Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens.
I tell you, I'll be
This is a
live here on
radical
election night, and this guy's getting his ass kicked on election night. And bring it on.
And she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one.
Biden
Just to
defeated
finish
Donald
one thing,
Trump.
So important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, They got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was.
He's got no
because
plan for the
because
economy.
The prices of energy were quadrupling.
He neglected the border.
So they
He
said, let's go back to
refused
But if she won the election,
to have his
the day
colleagues
after
support
that
the border
election,
bill.
they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil
He
will
pretty
be
much
dead,
says
fossil
states
fuel
have
will
the
be dead,
right
we'll
to
go back
terrorize
windmills, and
women
we'll go
on
back to
abortion.
solar, where they need a whole
Terrible,
desert to
terrible
get some
performance.
energy to come
All
out.
around
You ever see a
terrible
solar plant? By the way,
performance.
I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get
environment.
to.
He embarrasses us on the international
We
stage
have an
during the
election in just
G2
56
summit.
days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer.
I'm the
of power,
greatest
which,
president
of
for
course,
black
we all know is
people
a cornerstone
since
of our
Lincoln.
democracy,
Well,
the role
all
of
the
president,
people
in a moment
in
of crisis.
the
Mr.
G2
President,
summit
on
were
January 6th,
laughing
you
at
told your
here.
supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out of the Capitol that day. The officers coming out.
These were
Aides
shocking
in the West Wing say you
scenes.
watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message.
Yes, you did. You said Mike Pence didn't do his job. He wanted to overthrow the Constitution. His supporters were saying, hang Mike Pence and murder Nancy Pelosi, because those were the two next people in line to see Donald Trump. They wanted to create a constitutional crisis.
By an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I asked, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour?
This is all he has. All the people poured into our country. He doesn't have anything else to say. How are we going to combat inflation and the climate?
That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people?
He is not fit for power if he doesn't regret anything he did on January the 6th.
All over the world, David. All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world.
What the hell is he doing on that stage? He tried to overthrow democracy. What the hell is he doing on that stage? Why are Republican voters retarded? He lost the election. Move on with a different guy. You guys are delusional.
But let me just ask
These
you,
people got caught up in the big giant
you were watching
lie.
it unfold on television. It's a very simple question.
He's not even the best possible conservative to run in the general election against Kamala or Joseph
I had
Biden.
nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said,
Doesn't have anything to offer except bigotry. This is the problem. Everything is bad. It's a disaster. Don't vote for her. Don't vote for me. But he doesn't have anything to offer for the voter. That's the problem.
Whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy
Donald Trump said that
Pelosi,
Tim
the mayor
Walz is
of
doing a
Washington,
great
did
job
their
with
I wasn't
the
responsible for security.
violence that was
Nancy
happening in
Pelosi was
Minneapolis.
responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris.
He didn't answer the question either.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day,
That was a
the
scary
President
day.
of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's
He can look
capital,
down all he wants. He knows he's
to
lying.
desecrate our nation's capital. On that day,
Fight like hell or you don't have a country anymore. This is what he said before his little henchmen came in to try to murder Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi.
Indicted and impeached for exactly that reason.
He should be in jail.
But this is not an
He should be in a
isolated
jail
situation.
cell.
Let's remember.
What a
Charlottesville,
disgraceful piece of shit,
where
Donald Trump.
there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches.
He didn't give a
spewing
damn about any of these
anti-Semitic
people
hate.
who carried this
And what did
out
the
on his
president
behalf.
then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's
He just
remember
used them straight up.
that
He didn't
when
give a
it came to
damn
the
if they're going to
Proud Boys
spend
and militia,
decades in prison.
The president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back.
And we ain't going back, are we?
It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear.
That's what democracy is
On that
about. You don't have to like the
Donald
outcome of the
Trump, the
election.
candidate,
It is what it
has said in
is.
this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's
Look
turn
at
the
that
page
little
on this.
smile, that
Let's
little
not go back.
smirk. He
Let's
knows
chart a
exactly
course
you would try
to
the
the
same
future
thing
and
if you were to
not
lose
go
this election.
backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term.
Throw him
It
in
was a
jail
term that
right
related
away
to energy
after
because they have
November
destroyed
5th.
Our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville.
Liar. He
That
said
story
he
was
wanted a
because you would
complete
say
bloodbath at the
Laura
Capitol.
Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of the stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about
No one's going to listen to what the little Fox
Why are we
Stooges have to say.
these millions of people to come through on the southern border. How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do.
All this guy
I would be
has
very
is
proud to
racism
do.
and hatred
I
and
would say
bigotry
we would
against
both
these brown
leave this
people
debate
crossing the
right
border.
now. I'd like to see her go down
Guy's a
to
racist.
Washington, D.C.
He doesn't
during this
care
debate because we're wasting a lot of time.
about
Go
upholding
down
the
to-
rights of
because she's been
women
so bad, it's
having
so ridiculous.
reproductive health
Go
care.
down to
He
Washington,
doesn't
D.C.
care about
and let
raising
her
the
sign
wages.
a
He
bill to
doesn't
close
care
up the
about
border
having more
because they have
access
the
to
right
health
do it.
care.
They don't need
He
bills.
just
They
doesn't
have the right to
care.
do it. The
He
president
doesn't
of
want
the United
manufacturing
States,
jobs.
you'll
He
get him
did
out of
these
bed,
on the
you'll
stage
wake him up
and
at
say he
4
wants
o'clock in the
manufacturing
afternoon,
jobs
say,
back
"Come
in
on,
this country.
come on down to the
Oh, it was
border,
just a
let's settle
selling
down."
point for him to
If
get
he
elected to gain
signs a
power
bill
in
that the border is
2016.
closed, all he has to do is say it to the border patrol.
He's a
Phenomenal. If they
one-dimensional,
do that, the
one-trick
border is
pony.
closed.
The
Because
border's
people
bad.
accept many
Oh,
people
what's
unlike
bad?
26.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on.
Yeah, but Kamala destroyed our immigration. He voted against. He told his Republican colleagues, "Don't vote for the border bill in the election year." He's a politician.
Election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of
Woo!
this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote,
Fire!
that you
Over 300 electoral votes. That was a big tsunami victory for Biden. He has a lot of work to do because he is not getting independent voters.
There's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was...
But Biden had 81 million votes.
The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections,
We already have good
and a
elections.
lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English.
They
know
don't
the
even
country they're
need a
in.
vote.
And these people are trying
The
to get them to
Democrats have
vote.
ruled
And that's why
Congress
they're
from
allowing them to come
1930 to
vote.
1980. They didn't need any illegal brown people to be elected today.
And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No judge looked
Republican,
at it.
and said there
They
was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing.
Donald Trump, you
Technicality.
you're
Can you
racist,
imagine a
hate monger.
system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you do a special on it. I'll show you
Fuck
Georgia,
you,
and
Donald
I'll show
Trump.
you Wisconsin, and I'll show
Yeah, I
you
ain't got nothing
Pennsylvania,
to offer
and
to the
we
American
have so
people.
many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter. Because
You
we have
lost
the
the
problem that we have
election.
right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline.
Deflect
Into
from the
decline.
question.
It's a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President.
What
Harris,
kind of
we heard
bullshit
President
is he
tonight.
saying?
said
The
he didn't say
nation
he
is
lost the election,
dying.
So he still believes he did not lose the election. That was one.
Nation's dying because it's not going to be 65% white. Donald Trump is a
In the
racist.
last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump.
Come out here, live on election night. I dare you. Donald Trump is losing big time on November 5th. It's a lock.
He says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, "We won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote." Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a
jackass, you did get fired. They said we didn't want another 4 years of the reality TV circus clown show.
As he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you
And
that
the guy's
I
losing
have
big
traveled the
time
world as
tonight.
Vice President of the United States. And
She
world
got out of
leaders
there
are
letting
like
Donald
him.
Trump self-destruct on the
I have
stage.
talked
That's
with
what he's been
military
doing
leaders,
all
some of whom
night
work with
long.
you. And they say
There's
you're a
no fact
disgrace.
checker. There should be a fact checker.
And when you
Most
then
people are not
talk
buying to
in
the
this
BS that
way
he's selling
in
to
a
the public.
presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost.
No, the
because
court cases
you
he's
did, in fact,
lost.
lose that election.
The courts
It leads
are
one to
asking these
believe
people,
that
show us the
perhaps
evidence
we
that
do
the
not
election
have
was
a
rigged.
candidate to my right
They don't
to
have
government.
it. They're wasting the court's time.
Or the ability to not be confused about facts.
Biden is the rightful
That's
elected
deeply
president. He's
troubling,
done
and the
far
American
more
people
for the
deserve
American
better.
people than during the past 4 years under Donald Trump. He's brought back more manufacturing jobs than Donald Trump. He ended the war in Afghanistan. Donald Trump refused to end the war in Afghanistan.
They said, why is
Donald
the
Trump
whole world
screwed us out of the
blowing up?
process,
3 years ago, it
negotiating with the
wasn't. Why is it
Taliban instead of
blowing up?
involving the Afghans at the
Because
negotiation
you need
table.
Trump back
But
as
treaties have to be
president.
honored. You
They
can't
were
go
afraid
back
him.
off of a
China
treaty.
was afraid,
The
and
fact
I don't
is,
like to use the
Biden,
word afraid, but
under the
it's quoting
constraints
him.
from his
China was
predecessor,
afraid of him.
still
North Korea was
got
afraid
us
of him.
back home
Look
from
at what's going on
Afghanistan.
with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2
Biden
pipeline.
passed
And
more
Biden
tax
put it
breaks
back
for
on
working
day one,
people
but he ended
than
the XL pipeline.
any other
The
president in the
XL
past
pipeline
40
in our country.
years.
He ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most
We the
feared
people have the
person
right to hear
is
about
Donald
climate
Trump.
change.
We had no problems
This
when
anchor
Trump
needs
was
to ask the
president.
question,
But when
should
this
we do
weak,
everything we can
pathetic
to
man
save and
that you
preserve
saw
the
at
future of the
debate
planet?
just a few months ago,
Because here in
if he weren't
Arizona,
in that debate, he'd be
these
running in Senate race. He
100-degree
got no votes.
night
He got
times
14
at
million votes. Look, he
midnight
did. You talk about a threat to
in August,
democracy. He got
we are
14 million
affected
votes and they
by
threw
climate
him out of
change
office.
more so
And you know
than
what? I'll give
other
you no
areas
secret. He hates
living in
her.
the
He
desert
can't stand her.
in hellish
But he got
summers that are
14
going to
million
continue
votes. They
to get
threw him out.
worse
She
as
got
we do
0
nothing
votes.
to
And
address
when she
climate
ran,
change.
she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm okay
President,
with it because
Your time
I
is up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans.
Donald Trump is all
Vice
pro
President Harris
Netanyahu.
said
Let's
that
murder all the
Israel has a right to
Palestinians.
defend
Let's
itself, but
have a
yet
lot of
it
social
matters now.
unrest
Said
in
international
Israel. Could you
humanitarian
imagine if
must be
Donald Trump were
respected.
president during the
Israel
time?
must
Could
be
you
met
imagine if
with
Donald Trump were
civilians.
president to say we
He
should
said
be
that
giving
now
any
he
aid
wants
to
to
Ukraine
balance
to
the
allow Putin
Palestinians
to
are
grab
dead,
Ukraine on a
hostages
silver platter?
remain.
Thank
Just
goodness
last week,
Donald
Mr.
Trump
Benjamin
lost
Netanyahu
this
said
last
there's not a deal in the
election.
making.
Now
President Biden is
we
not gonna
have
be
to
able
be
break
sure
this stalemate.
that we will
How will you-
deny Donald Trump another
Let's understand
chance to
On
abuse
October 7th,
power and cater to
Hamas, a
dictators.
terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does.
I mean, the
matters.
Zionist Jews
Because it
own
is
both
also
parties,
far
okay?
too many
Zionist Jews
Innocent
tell Kamala,
Palestinians have been killed.
you're not gonna
children, mothers.
support
What we
Palestine
know
to the
is
core.
that this
Look
war
all these
must
sickos
It
cheering
must win,
Netanyahu
and
like he's Jesus
immediately,
Christ
and the
during
way
that
it
joint
will
session
end
of
is we need
Congress.
a ceasefire deal, and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that.
We need a ceasefire and the war and the war and the
Chart a course
war.
for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be.
Netanyahu doesn't want that. He
Israeli
wants to
people and
murder
Israel
more
and the equal measure
Palestinians.
for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any
Look at
threat
the
that Iran
Jews
and its
in
proxies
America.
pose to Israel.
You have
But
your
we must have a
first
two-state solution
first
where we
gentleman.
can rebuild Gaza, where the
His name is
Palestinians
Emroff, I
have
think.
security,
America's first
self-determination,
gentleman,
and the
a
dignity
Jew.
they so rightly deserve.
America's first
President
Jewish
Trump,
president,
how will you
Kamala, or
negotiate
not
with
Kamala,
Netanyahu
but
and
Ivanka
also Hamas in order to get the
Kushner
hostages
Trump. Her
out
name
and
is, her
prevent the
Jewish
killing
name
of
is
working
Kushner,
civilians
but
in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never
the
started.
Israel,
If I were president, Russia
they
would have
got their
never,
independence
ever,
in the
I
year
know Putin
48.
very well. He
And
would
so
have
the
never-
first
there was
Jewish
no
president
president
has to be the
if I were
48th president in the history of this country. So that's another thing that's working against Donald Trump. It's the fact that Ivanka has to be number 48. So this means that Donald Trump has to lose, that we have a 47th president. And then if Kamala's the 47th president, American people want to reject her, and Donald Trump is finished politically,
She wanted to go to the sorority
then this would
party. She hates
open
Israel.
the
If she's
floodgates for
president, I
Ivanka
believe that Israel will
to
not exist
kind of
within
lead
2
the
years from
Republican
now. I've
Party
been pretty good at
into
predictions,
the
and I
future.
hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population.
She hates Israel. She hates the
Is
Arabs.
going to get blown
This
up.
guy's out of his mind. What a
Jewish
weirdo.
people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror.
Fuck
They have no
Trump.
money.
Fuck Donald
It's a good
Trump.
story.
Fuck
You
Trump.
covered it very well, actually.
Trump
They have
sucks.
no
He's the
money
worst.
for
He's
terror.
awful. He's
They are broke.
garbage.
Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast.
He
and
can
I'll get
end the war in
with
Yemen during
Ukraine
this
and
presidency.
Russia
What is
ended
he going
with a
off of about?
president-elect.
Who's
I'll get it
buying
done
into this
before even
smokescreen
becoming president.
BS? Who's buying that smokescreen BS?
That's absolutely not true. I have my
Exactly.
entire career
His
in
head
life
is deep up
supported
his
Israel
asshole.
and the Israeli people.
Go get
He
him,
knows
Kamala. Go
that.
get him.
He's trying to again divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a
He allowed the
dictator
China
under
virus to
American
take over
law.
America.
It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into
The
Ukraine.
Egyptian
It
president
is
sent him
well
$10
known
million
that he said
before
when
inauguration.
Russia went
He
into
took a
Ukraine,
bribe
it
from
was brilliant.
the
It is
Egyptians.
well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un, and it is absolutely well
How
known
these
that
foreign
these
dictators
and
can
autocrats
play this
are
guy so
rooting
easily?
for you to be
He hasn't
president again because
nowhere.
they're so
He should be
clear
nowhere
they
near
can
the Oval
manipulate you
Office.
with flattery and
He is so
fake.
easily
And that
flattered
is
to
why
evil,
So
mischievous
many military
dictators.
leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
And she's the one that caused it. That's weak on national security by allowing every.
She didn't talk to Kim. She didn't talk to Vlad. How is it her
168
fault?
different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last year.
I get the funny feeling we'd be seeing the same border crisis if Donald Trump were president. It's so easily, it was easily,
The
you know
leaders
it.
of other countries
It's all an
think that
effect
they're weak
of
and
COVID,
incompetent,
of
and
the
they are.
world
They're
reopening,
grossly incompetent.
that
And I
people
just
would have
asked one
came to
question.
America in
Why is
2020.
Biden
These
already
numbers are
killed
going
a
to
piece of
reflect
my
bigger for
blood
2021
and approved the
and
single
2022.
biggest deal that
But
Russia's ever
the
made.
numbers are
Nord Stream
going
2 is the
down
biggest
because,
pipeline
again,
anywhere in the world going to Germany
the
and
last
all over Europe.
couple few years, the
Because
borders
they're weak,
been
they're
open,
ineffective.
but
And Biden,
immediately
by the way,
after a completely shut down border, of course, you're going to see a spike of people, just like you see a spike of consumer spending when you couldn't spend any money for 1 year. But then 2021, obviously, a sharp rise in demand was inevitably going to cause inflation, regardless of who won in 2020. Regardless if Biden or Trump won, the winner was going to see a spike in inflation that came with the reopening of the economy.
People might confuse you with that.
Bro, people might confuse
Now, what
you.
people don't realize about gas prices,
Bro, you know
Donald
I'm
Trump
not.
negotiated with Saudi Arabia in 2020, you're going to limit your production of oil for 2 years to 2022. Donald Trump, at that point in time, knew he was losing the election. What Donald Trump wanted to do was he wanted to hurt the next president of the United States. He negotiated with OPEC and Saudi Arabia. We're going to limit the production of oil. We're going to stick it to Joe Biden. So one person responsible for the rise of gas prices is Donald J. Trump. Because he purposely negotiated to limit the production of oil, knowing he was not going to win the election of 2020.
Will it be Taylor's year once again, or will a new artist rise to the top and claim Video of the Year? Plus, dopest live performances from Lenny Kravitz, LL Cool J, Shawn Mendes, Video Vanguard Katy Perry, and it's all hosted by Megan Thee Stallion at the MTV Video Music Awards, live on MTV.
Yo, what's up, everybody?
Can I get a response to the trade rooms?
Trade. Trade means moving, man. We talking about moving? Moving means contractors, inspectors, strangers dredging my carpet. We talking about staging? We talking about a faux ficus. A faux ficus. Nobody's gonna be a faux ficus in my house.
You can open the door, so you're not scrapped it in.
Easy. I guess we're moving.
Pat,
What you gonna ask me about next, man? Practice?
University of Maryland Global Campus is a school for real life, one that values the successes you've already achieved. Earn up to 90 undergraduate credits for relevant experience and get the support you need from your first
Donald Trump is a mitigated disaster.
People who voted. Great is ahead.
Donald Trump is a mitigated disaster. What are we talking about? If Donald Trump were in the Oval Office, it's quite clear. If he were in the Oval Office, Donald Trump would have given billionaires even more tax breaks, excluding money spent as a result of COVID. Donald Trump and Joe Biden have spent roughly the same amount of money when you don't factor in the COVID pandemic. Now, Biden's spending creates value because he created infrastructure spending. He created manufacturing jobs. So Biden's $4 trillion figure does not account for future economic growth. Donald Trump's $4 billion price tag is first and foremost a direct result of giving billionaires tax breaks, and billionaires don't reinvest in the economy. The billionaires don't bring back manufacturing jobs. The billionaires, Donald Trump did not pass a bipartisan infrastructure bill. So Donald Trump added $4 billion, excluding COVID, that created no value whatsoever for the country. Joe Biden's $4 trillion, fuck Carrie Lake, fuck you, fuck you. Fuck you and Kerry Lake. We people in Arizona reject Looney Lake. She already lost the governor's race. Ruben Gallego is going to send Looney Lake back to the asylum. So shut the fuck up about Kerry Lake, motherfucker, because this bitch is crazy. She is denying elections. We people in Arizona wholeheartedly reject Looney Lake. She will lose again. It'll be the end of her political career. She already lost a governor's race here in 2022. Ruben Gallego is doing great in the polls against Kerry Lake. We didn't cheat Looney Lake, the loser. She lost because she doesn't cater to independents. She is a maggot extremist. There's no mystery why she lost in 2022. In fact, most registered voters in Arizona are independent. You hear Looney Lake, the loser, start saying that the election was stolen. Oh, the fix is it. It's election stolen. Most sane-minded people in Arizona, whether you're Democrat or independent or reasonable Republican, are just not going to vote for a lunatic like Looney Lake, the loser. Gallego is beating her by 5 to 6 points. And for the record, I'm voting Gallego here in Arizona, not some lunatic election denier who thinks Donald Trump even remotely cares about it. Then if she loses the election, Donald Trump won't give 2 shits about Looney Lake, the loser. When Looney Lake, the loser, loses again, Donald Trump is not even going to care about her because she can't even make him look good. Kamala's winning Pennsylvania.
Hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even.
No! We're gonna win the war! Fuck you! Fuck Vladimir Putin! Fuck Donald Trump!
To one, I'll speak to the other. I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact,
it still would have happened while you're president because you do the full billing for Vladimir Putin. You wouldn't have given aid to Ukraine. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
I said, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point.
End the war. Vladimir Putin to resettle. Let's not give any more weapons to Ukraine. Let's allow Vladimir Putin to retake the Ukraine.
It could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David.
Donald Trump wants World War III. He wants to make it easier for Vladimir Putin to attack our allies.
We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify here,
He wants to destroy NATO. He wants to defund NATO. This is what causes World War III.
your time is up.
Guy's a fraud. He's such a joke. The war's about to end because Ukraine has attacked inside Russia, thanks to Joe Biden and thanks to Zelensky and thanks to everyone else who has contributed.
We have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this device.
Human lives!
Support for Ukraine in this moment.
The war would have been longer if Vladimir Putin was attacking a bunch of Ukrainians without having any help from the United States of America and NATO.
Well, first of all, it's important.
Go get this bastard, Kamala. Fuck Donald Trump. Fuck that piece of shit.
The reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
Exactly. He wouldn't even give Ukraine any help against Vladimir Putin. He's a joke.
Met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to define one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided. Ukraine stands as an independent and free country.
Kamala has
If
an
Donald
endorsement
Trump were
of
president,
200
Putin would be sitting in
Republicans.
Kyiv right now. And understand what that would
What
mean.
when George
Because
Bush gonna
Putin's
endorse
agenda
Kamala
is
Harris?
not
You
just
figure
about Ukraine.
the way he insulted
Understand
Jeb
why
Bush,
the European
George
allies
Bush
and
gonna
our
come out with
NATO
endorsement of
allies
Kamala
are
right
so
before the
thankful
election.
that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish
It just
Americans
makes me
right there in
sick
Pennsylvania
how the
quickly you
Republican
would give
Party
up
has
for the
completely
sake of
catered
favor
to
and
Mad
what you think is a
Vlad
friendship
the Putin.
with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Fuck
We've heard from both of
this
you on
bastard.
Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan
And
came up
fuck
in
the
the last hour.
deplorables too.
I wanted her to respond to something you said
Donald
earlier.
Trump did nothing on the
Please,
border. He
I'll
did
give you-
nothing to help Ukraine. This guy's a
Putin would be
bastard.
sitting in Moscow,
Fuck Donald
and he
Trump.
wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow, quiet please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually,
Only a right-wing retard would support Vladimir Putin over their own country. It's, oh, Vladimir Putin, this country's full of white people. We like Vladimir Putin because it's so homogeneous. That's why the right wing likes Vladimir Putin so much.
Something we don't even like to talk
Pure
about.
racism
Nobody
is what
likes
it
to talk
is.
about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because
They
everything
never
said was
negotiated
weak
peace with
and
Vladimir
stupid.
Putin.
They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary.
He was going
They
to start
sent her in to
regardless of who
negotiate
won
with
in 2020.
Zelensky and Putin.
Who's going to
And she
believe
did.
this
And the war
lunatic
started
clown?
3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country.
This guy's a
She goes
jackass.
down as
Joe
the worst
Biden was
vice
a better
president in the history
president
of our
than
country. But let me
Donald
tell you
Trump.
something. She is a
Is this
horrible
guy for real?
negotiator.
Is he for
They
real?
sent her in to negotiate as soon as they left. Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever
Joe
met Vladimir
Biden
Putin?
doesn't
Can you
cater
clarify
to
tonight?
foreign
Yeah, and I
dictators.
said at the beginning of this debate, you're gonna hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one.
He's a felon!
Meet with
He's a
President Trump.
felon!
I met with him over 5 times. The reality is, it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent.
Why can't
on
you
our ability
attack
to
Donald
look
Trump
out for
showing
our
that he wanted to
friends
dismantle
and not
NATO?
favor
That's where
our
you have to
enemies
go after
who
him.
adore strongmen instead of caring about
He's trying to
democracy.
destroy NATO. He doesn't want to fund the money for NATO. He's a Vladimir Putin stooge.
Commander-in-chief, and the American people have a right to rely
He owes
on a
lots of
president
money to
who
Russian
understands
oligarchs.
the significance
The
of
Russian
America's role and
co-signers of his
responsibility
loans from the Deutsche
in
Bank.
terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
You talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I wanted to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying, one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you. Otherwise, we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government.
He did
negotiated
bypass the
directly with a
Afghan
terrorist
government.
organization called the Taliban.
He negotiated with the Taliban without involving the Afghani government at the table.
Taliban terrorists
He released 5,000 Afghani fighters.
And the president at the time,
Donald Trump does bear responsibility for the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan.
us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American
He's a terrible negotiator, Donald Trump, at a disastrous deal with the militant Taliban, a disaster to not involve the own government of Afghanistan at the negotiation table.
Because he does not
Donald Trump is a huge
appreciate
mitigated
the
disaster.
role and responsibility of the president of the United States to be
He's a
commander-in-chief
disaster.
with a level of respect.
Fuck Donald
And this
Trump.
gets back to
Fuck
the point of how
Donald
he has
Trump.
consistently disparaged and demeaned
F
members of our
Donald
military,
Trump.
fallen soldiers, and the work
Fuck
that we must
Donald
do to
Trump.
uphold the strength
Fuck
and
that
the
piece of
respect
shit.
of the United States of America around the world.
Donald Trump is not doing himself any favors during this debate today. It's a disastrous performance. He failed to offer anything to the American people. Kamala Harris attacked this border bill. Donald Trump said it's up to the states. It doesn't matter if we abuse women and their rights to decide what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Donald Trump whiffed on abortion. He failed on the border. He whiffed on Ukraine. He wanted to leave us deserted and by ourselves if he were president.
He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore.
He's
you're
a
gonna have problems.
dotard.
And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said,
The-
you're going to have to figure
The
that out.
North
Abdul."
Korean
And
dictator,
for 18 months,
Kim
we had
Jong-un,
nobody killed.
he called
We
him
did have an
dotard.
agreement negotiated
He's a
by bipartisan
retard, but he's Donald.
very good
A
agreement.
dotard is a
reason
retard whose
it
name
was
is
good,
Donald.
It was, we were getting out. We would have been out.
So
faster,
flattered
but we
so
wouldn't have lost the
easily
soldiers.
by
We wouldn't have left many Americans
Kim
behind,
Jong-un.
and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it.
You would have heard them all with it.
By us, because they didn't do what they were
Because you're a
supposed to do.
disastrous negotiator.
Did the worst with
Oh, I trust you guys. You will hold off the Afghanis. Donald Trump is a mitigated disaster.
That's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she.
Because you were going to be president and they're going to attack regardless, and they were betting on you to win in 2020, so you would give them Ukraine on a silver platter.
I didn't know she was black
Vladimir
until a
Putin
number of years ago.
wants to reestablish the USSR. He is 70 years of age. He was always going to invade
Why do
Ukraine.
you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care.
Liar! Liar!
You
He
make
said
it
she was too dumb to pass her bar test. He's a disaster. He's a liar.
So I'm
I
asking
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was.
Mom is black and she's DEI. He's a liar. He's full of
I'll
garbage.
say that.
He's
And then
full of
I read
horse
that she was
manure
black.
on a
That's okay.
whole extra
That's okay.
layer.
That's okay.
Who is going to
That's okay.
believe that nonsense? Nobody.
I think honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was he owned land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this
He's
is
a
the same
racist.
individual
He refused to rent to
who
black
took out a
families.
full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys.
They were all
who were
innocent, and
innocent
Donald
of
Trump
Central
wanted
Park
them
Five.
murdered.
Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution.
He did
This
not
is
look at
same
the
individual
evidence. This is not
who
someone who
spread
should be
birther
president of the
lies
United
about the
States.
first black president of the United States. And I think the American
All
people
5 of these black men were innocent, and Donald Trump
want better than this.
advocated for their
Want
execution
someone who understands
in
as
the
I
New
do,
York
I travel our
Times.
country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor.
Look at this
We
guy.
don't
He
want
doesn't
a
give
leader
a
who is
shit.
constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me,
He's
"Can we
losing
please
it.
just have
He's
discourse
absolutely losing it right
how
now.
we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people."
He's a president for his own base. That's it.
Language their grandmother speaks. We all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris. Thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
He looks like a dotard.
This
Oh,
is the most divisive
oh,
presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything.
nobody
like it.
wants
They're
that
destroying
loser.
our country. And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, where a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five. They admitted.
America's a dumping ground for everybody else's
They
problems.
had
They're not sending their best. They're sending you. They're murderers, rapists, and some I assume are good people.
That has to stretch back.
Donald
years,
Trump is a
40,
racist.
50 years ago. Because there's
Donald
nothing
Trump
now.
is a
I
bigot.
don't want to be greatest
He will not be
economist in the
president for
history of
all
the world.
Americans.
And I'm gonna
He's
dump
only
it again.
president for
It's gonna be
white
bigger, better, and
Americans.
stronger. But they're
Donald Trump
destroying
is a
our economy.
failure
They
of a
have no
president.
idea
He's a
what a good
failure of a
economy
leader.
is.
He's a failure of a
Oil
unifier.
policies,
He's a
every
failure of a
single policy.
uniter
Remember
during
this.
times of
She's
crisis,
right.
during
There
COVID.
she's
Because
trying to get
we
away from
all
it. I don't
lived
know the
through
gentleman,
COVID,
she
and,
says,
and Donald
She
Trump
is right.
failed to
The
bring
worst
everybody
inflation we've ever
together.
had. A horrible economy because inflation has
This
made it
economy
so
is
bad.
far better
And she
than it's
can't get away
been
with
under
that.
Donald Trump.
Briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible. One
Donald
who
Trump
brings
is
a
part of the
sense
failed
optimism
system. There's more
about what we can
cynicism of
do
government
instead of
thinks
always
to
disparaging
Donald Trump's failed
American
presidency.
I believe
People didn't
in
see
what we can
change
do
under Donald
to
Trump whatsoever.
strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have.
Donald
a
Trump
plan.
offered nothing for small business owners to spear growth the economy. Kamala
I have a
would give
plan
first
to give
time
startup
businesses a
$50,000
$50,000 tax deduction.
to pursue.
Donald Trump
their
doesn't give a
ambitions,
fuck
their innovation,
about ordinary
their
people.
ideas,
This guy
their
is a
hard
piece of
work.
garbage.
I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan.
And Donald Trump has nothing for that child newborn
What has been
under
key
this
in terms of
world
the
that we
American
live in
dream
today.
by offering
Who would vote for that?
with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice
and
President
move
Harris.
forward.
Thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
to
we have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
To defund the police. She has a plan.
Not
to
defunding the
confiscate
police.
Everybody's gun.
President
She
Trump, we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's what her plan is until just recently.
I think
Let's hear it.
President Trump, the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry,
I
we're
just
gonna
need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President.
time to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is now your 3rd time running for president. You had long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act.
He's a failure. He can't replace Obamacare, and he's running for president. His 3rd election.
Unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan?
Failed to
And can you
repeal
tell
and
us what it
replace
is?
when
Obamacare
he had
was
control
lousy
of both
healthcare.
chambers
Always
of
was.
Congress.
It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're gonna do it and we're gonna replace it. But remember this, I inherited
Obamacare is law of the
because
land
Democrats
forever.
wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that,
Thank
we
God
would
for
have
John
had a much
McCain.
better
Thank God
plan
for
than
John McCain.
Obamacare. But the Democrats came up, they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never gonna be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at
Libertarian
different
lunatic
plans.
Moloch.
If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our
Obamacare
population,
lowers
less money
healthcare
and
costs
better healthcare
versus
than
the
Obamacare,
so-called
then I
free
would
market.
absolutely
Let's
do it.
go on,
But
oh,
until
free
then,
market.
Run it as good as it can be run.
So just yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have
Single
concepts of
payer
a plan.
results in lower
I'm not
costs per
president right
person.
now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President
Because he's got
Harris, in
no plan. He
2017,
can't
you supported
offer it
Bernie Sanders'
today.
proposal to do
You
away
gotta
with
offer
private
in the
insurance for
future. Oh my
government-run
God.
healthcare system.
I've got
2
no
years later,
plan.
you
I'll
proposed
offer
a
in the
plan that
future.
included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking, and then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's
She owns
guns.
guns.
So
You hear
stop
that?
with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to
Stop
the
it,
Affordable Care Act,
dotard.
understand
She
what-
owns
just
guns.
Look at the history to know
You're a
where
fag
people
who doesn't
stand.
own a gun.
When Donald Trump was
A
president,
felon
60
can't own a
times
gun.
he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time. When I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate, and the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being a
Yeah, John
candidate
McCain
at the time because
stuck it to
he
that
got caught. He
bastard.
was an American
Yeah.
hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night. Walked onto the
Aha,
floor and
fuck
said,
you, Trump.
"No,
Fuck
you
you, piece
don't.
of shit.
No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan.
Arizona's voting blue again.
Eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people.
John McCain stuck it up to that bastard.
Tonight. You remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance
He tried to
company could
overthrow a
deny
democratically elected
if a
government.
child had
Fuck Donald
asthma?
Trump.
If someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes?
Worst
And
president ever.
thankfully,
He's right up
as
there,
I've
James
been vice
Buchanan.
president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act. We have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of
Prescription
using
drugs have
Medicare.
lowered under the
Donald Trump
presidency
said he
of
was
Kamala
gonna allow
Harris.
Medicare
Donald
to
Trump
negotiate
didn't give a fuck about
drug
people
prices. He never
paying
did. We did.
outrageous
And now
prices
we
for
have capped the
prescription
cost of insulin at
drugs.
$35 a
Fucking
month.
party doesn't
Since
do
I've been vice
anything
president,
about that.
we have capped the cost of prescription medication
They've
for
lowered
seniors
the
at
price of
$2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to
Fucking
this
party don't
is
care.
that access to health care
All they
should
care
be a
about is
right, and not just a
playing
privilege
off of
those
the
who can afford it.
racism and the
And the plan
bigotry of the
has to
masses.
be
The fucking
to
party is
strengthen
the
the Affordable
institutional
Care
pit.
Not get rid of it.
Vice
Fastest
President
roll up
Harris,
in
thank
terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of
mistake. And number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were
But
all
John
the Democrats
McCain
that
preserved
kept it going. And you know
Obamacare.
We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical
Well, the
insurance.
private, greedy,
That's another thing.
for-profit
So
insurance
people are paying
companies,
privately for insurance.
tell me how America
Work
thinks they're
hard
doing
and
so
make money, and
good.
wanna have private-
Out of
She wants
touch
everybody
doing
to be
it.
on
Yeah,
government
he owns
insurance
stock
where you
in these
wait
companies.
6 months for an operation that you need to be.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump. with regard to
Finally,
the
they talk
environment,
about
you say that
climate
we
change.
have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate
Donald
change
Trump
an
doesn't give a
existential
fuck about
threat.
the
The
environment.
question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change?
Fuck
And
Donald
Vice
Trump. He
President Harris,
doesn't
to
give a
start with
fuck
you,
about
1
the
minute
environment.
for
All he
each.
cares about
Well,
is the
former
profits for
president
his
said that climate
for-profit,
change is a
greedy
hoax.
oil companies.
And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state
Scientists and
who's
teachers endorse
experienced these
Democratic
extreme
Party.
weather occurrences, who now is either
Republicans
being
don't even
denied
give
home
a damn
insurance or
about
is being
preserving
jacked
the
up.
climate
You
for
ask
future
anybody who has
generations,
been,
for the
the
grandchildren.
victim of what that means in terms of losing their home,
Republicans
having
just
nowhere to
deny
go.
climate
We know
change is
that we
not
can actually
happening.
deal with this issue. The young people.
Meanwhile, I live under climate change.
And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we
Only
have
a
invested
retard
$1
would
trillion
deny that
in a
climate
clean
change
energy economy.
is
While we
occurring
have also
due to
increased domestic gas
man-made
production to
activity.
historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening
Who's this
up
clown freak? He's
factories
going
around
to
the
win the
world. Donald
debate
Trump said he
of
was gonna
Kamala
create
Harris. Bring your
manufacturing jobs.
facts
He
about
lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto
it.
Workers
Kamala's
and
created
Sean
more
Penn,
manufacturing jobs than this clown.
Building a clean energy economy includes investing.
Well,
in
Republican
American
Party would
made
deny that
products,
climate change is
American
happening. At least Democrat Party would
automobiles. It
do something
includes
about climate change.
Growing what we can do around American manufacturing.
Democrats don't give billionaires large tax breaks, do they? The Republican Party, they give
Thank you.
all the people
Let me just tell
who
you,
need
there
it
was
the
10,000
least
manufacturing jobs
large
this last month.
billionaire tax
It's
breaks.
going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these.
They're
massive
not owned by
plants where they
China.
can
That's a
sell their
lie.
cars
They're
into the
owned by
United
the
States because of
corporations. They're not
these
owned by
people.
China.
What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not gonna let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come.
You're
into
gonna
our country
lose trade
because they
with
will
more
kill
tariffs, man.
United
Donald
Auto
Trump
Workers
is
and
sure.
any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it between him and his son. They get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
The ABC News presidential debate will
Huawei
continue
is
after
absolutely smoking
this.
Donald Trump.
The TV moments that took culture over the edge.
Donald
People
Trump is
were
a
watching,
mitigated
and then our world
disaster.
changed.
Ooh, it had an explosive reverberation.
TV on the Edge premieres Sunday, September 22nd at 9 on CNN.
There's three things I ain't changing. I ain't changing wives, I'm not changing sexual orientation.
It's been a mitigated disaster for 4 years. We don't need. That's why Donald Trump's going to lose, because he's a failed one-term president. A one-term president. America didn't like him enough to elect him again. He was such a loser. All he could have done was take COVID seriously, and he probably would have won re-election. But Donald Trump is the very definition of a big, giant loser.
You can decide to push yourself or to lie low. Live smarter.
And Trump is a huge
With the
loser.
Aura Ring.
This guy is a
Why
joke.
has America accepted to wait for payday? When life doesn't wait for you to get paid. If Introducing My Pay. from
As the
Chime.
debate's over,
Revenue
Donald
sharing
Trump's a
new way of
mitigated
getting
disaster.
paid.
It's gonna be the end
Get
of
up
his
to
presidency.
$500 of your pay before payday. No interest, no credit check, no mandatory